Hello, and welcome to the On the Couch podcast, the podcast that gives you the view from the therapist's chair. I'm your host, Joanna Dennstaedt, a licensed professional counselor. You're listening to OTC Episode 4, a conversation with Joanna Dennstaedt of Radiant Hope. So on today's episode, I'm very excited to talk with you guys about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is supporting those struggling with cancer. For those of you that don't know, we're coming up on a year now that my brother passed away from colon cancer. I feel like this is an issue that so many people are touched by. I feel like, everybody has somebody, knows somebody that has received a cancer diagnosis, and it's just such a horrible disease, and our loved ones often are taken too early. And so that's why I'm super excited today to be talking to Joanna Dennstaedt of Radiant Hope. In doing research for this episode and this interview, I went on the American Cancer Society website, and so I just want to share with you a couple of the stats that you can find there. But they talked about, roughly 1.7 million new cancer cases are expected in the year 2018. And in addition to that, 609,000 Americans are expected to die from cancer in 2018. And that's just in America alone. And I feel like, again, it happens on such a large scale to children, to adults, and just all across the board. I feel like this is what makes support for the fight against cancer and supporting families that have a loved one dealing with cancer. That's what makes it so crucial. In 2014, as a young mom, Joanna was diagnosed with stage 3 malignant metastatic melanoma. She became the first recipient of a Hope package, and after 2 major surgeries and 9 months of treatment, Radiant Hope was born. A visionary and leader by nature, Joanna has always thrived in a team environment. Today, she is the founder of Radiant Hope, a 501c3 organization that seeks to provide a vision of hope in the midst of impossible circumstances. She is a wife, mother of 4, and has coached lacrosse at both the collegiate and high school levels. So, Joanna, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
You even read my bio and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you talking about me? It's still kind of shocking to me.
Yes, who is this amazing woman?
Oh my gosh, what has happened to my life? Yeah.
So to jump right in, just tell the folks out in podcast land what is Radiant Hope?
Okay, I love to tell people what Radiant Hope is because I feel like it's nothing that I created, but yet it was chosen for me and I was called to it through some life choices that I didn't create myself, but it was a gift to me. So as I share about what Radiant Hope is, I love to first say that it started after I was the recipient of a first Hope package, and it started off in September of 2015 after I had received a package and after I was the recipient of many gifts, actually, and a lot of community support after my diagnosis with cancer. And so we decided to start a nonprofit where we could slowly figure out how we were going to start to make an impact in our community by supporting and encouraging and being there for people who were walking through what I and my family was walking through. So we started Radiant Hope as a way to send a little encouraging package that would arrive on people's doorstep. And it has some purposeful items in the package. So that's a big picture. Radiant Hope is much more than our packages. I would say that we have many strategies, but that's our main one. alongside of packages, my favorite part of Radiant Hope is getting to know people, getting to listen to other people's stories, getting to hear of the different experiences that a life with cancer brings. Unique to our ministry, I think, is that we don't just support and encourage survivors, but that we also support and encourage caregivers and people that are giving care to people that are surviving cancer, or giving care to someone who's giving care to the main caregiver, to someone who's surviving cancer. I was surrounded by many caregivers. I always thought that their job was harder than mine because everyone always was caring about me. I was always concerned with who was supporting the people that needed to be full-time giving me the care that I needed.
So lots of care all around.
Lots of care all around, yes.
And that's part of why I wanted to have you on in the first place is, I think that, cancer, it's such an awful disease, and I think it's something that everybody can get behind. It's something I feel like everybody has a loved one, a friend, that somebody that they know in their life that has been touched by cancer. So on your end, you shared about getting that first package. Can you kind of walk us through what was that like?
It's funny you ask. I had just looked back in my notes to see, I was writing a blog at the time as a way to update family and friends. And I had written a blog about that day that package came. And I was just thinking about the difference that one was to all the other ways I was being supportive, because it came from someone I didn't know. Which was strikingly different to me. Most of the people that were stepping into our lives at the time were people that we knew, and people sending cards, signing their names. But this package that showed up was from someone I did not know, and the detective in me had to find out where it came from. So I tracked down this woman, and I tracked her down, Facebook stalked, let's be honest. I Facebook stalked this woman. And I messaged her, and I found her address and her name. And I said, I think I got something from you. This might be really strange. Maybe you have an Etsy store and someone requested that you send this to me. I would love to know if someone did and who they were. She responded to me right away with a super sweet message that basically said, you weren't supposed to find out about me. I don't know how you did. And went on to share about how she had been reading my blog and heard of me from a friend of a friend of a friend, and had just felt the urge to pray for and support my family, and just send that package with hopes that it would just encourage us. And it struck me that was what I like to say is the day that the vision started for what we were going to start doing. I really tell this friend of mine that now I keep in touch with, and we talk to each other. I do like to tell her she's really the founder of Radiant Hope.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And all through your amazing detective work.
Yes. Oh, yes, that too.
So, yeah, that kind of leads me into, what role do you play now in Radiant Hope?
So I am the founder, yes, and the CEO, president. But mostly what I'm involved in is community development and partnerships. I do a lot of speaking engagement and sharing. We do pack parties where local people in the community host events where they pack our packages. And a lot of times I go and speak and share at those things. So I get to do a lot of the meetings and the sharing part of our ministry and what we've done. And then I get to manage with my leadership team, the volunteers and all the people that have their hands on everything and that are doing everything. My office is in my home, and my basement is full of shelves and stocked with things. So I'm running this out of my home. So I also get the privilege of having people here to help and volunteer with our ministry.
So yeah, just so impressive that everything that must go into this organization and the events that you guys have. So it made me think of two stories that I want to share with everybody that I feel kind of embodies who Joanna is. And the one comes from, I remember when we were in college, I had the misfortune of having my wisdom teeth taken out, which for any of you who are trying to schedule it, middle of college is not the best time to do that. And I distinctly remember through, the Percocet haze of, being on my couch in my apartment, that Joanna and one of her teammates from the lacrosse team came, and they had brought me my favorite ice cream at the time. And that's just always stood out to me, just the thought and the care and the support that went into that gesture. So that always meant something to me. And the second story is so Joanna and I both played lacrosse and coached for Messiah College. And I remember this one time, it was like in the middle of the summer. I think it was like the heat of the day, like the very middle of the day, the hottest point that it could be. And for any of you that aren't familiar with Messiah College, or those that are familiar, you'll know Lisburn Road. And I was leaving the college, I think it was like the end of camp or something like that. I was driving away, and I was driving up Lisburn Road to the top of the hill. And as I'm getting towards the top of the hill, I see this figure that's jogging along. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm getting up to the top of the hill, like, who in the world is running in the middle of the day in this heat? And as I get up closer, I realize, oh my gosh, that's Joe. It's Joanna. And I get up to the stop sign and I put my window down and I'm like, do you want to ride? Like, are you okay? Are you cleared to be out here? Because not only was she running, she was 8 months pregnant. And that is Joanna. And, the reason that I wanted to tell that story is, I feel like that paints such a good picture of just who you are and especially in Radiant Hope, just that idea that you will not be stopped. And yet at the same time, just so extremely supportive. That always stood out to me.
Yeah, thank you. It's amazing how I just shared with a group of young women a couple weeks ago, just to encourage them that I think we're all on this path to like trying to find our purpose. And when I hear stories like that about myself, or I look back, even really young, just being one of the oldest in my family and just taking care of people, just in even my birth role in my family, just looking back to how we're all, given a different personality and we're given gifts that we use, and we don't often notice or are called to use them at the capacity that we think at different times in our life. But there are seasons, when we're called to all of a sudden step into a role. And I see my role as Radiant Hope, and I look back and like, all the years of coaching experience I've had. And now I'm coaching a different team that I've been called to coach. But that part amazes me about this. Yeah. So God's working always, and who you are is who you're supposed to be. And you might not be called to be running a ministry today, but what you are doing could be shaping and sharpening you for what you are going to do later. So
definitely. And so I was going to say, in a sense, you've been, trained and prepared for this your whole life. You're listening to OTC Episode 4, a conversation with Joanna Dennstaedt of Radiant Hope. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Life is hard, but Parenting and Family Solutions is here to help. Our board-certified counselors are easy to talk to and offer a safe, encouraging environment to help you with your unique needs. We specialize in helping clients of all ages deal with depression, anxiety, marriage issues, screen addiction, and ADHD, just to name a few. We now have daytime and evening appointments available in Harrisburg and Lancaster and accept most major insurance plans. Visit our website to learn more at www.parentfamilysolutions.com or give us a call at 717-602-5560. Let us help you build a stronger family and a healthier you.
So how important is support to someone who's battling cancer?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this and I've been asked this question so many times. I think, gosh, I think it's like saying how important is gas to a car. Like it's not going to go if it doesn't have what's going to fuel it. And when something like a tragedy comes into a family or into a person's life, you can't go at it alone and you're not going to get through it alone. I think it's necessary. God designed it. We thrive when we're part of a community of people. And I think it's important to find one and be a part of one in order to successfully go through what you're going to have to go through. And, not everyone's going to go through what I went through in my life, but people are all going to face challenges in their life at different time periods. And it's important to establish a community around you where you can have that support.
Sure, yeah. You hear so much, things like, today's buzzword is tribe and, building that team and that community of support around that person.
Right.
So what are some things that a person can do to support somebody else that's, been given a diagnosis of cancer, or their loved one or family member is dealing with a cancer diagnosis?
I just read an amazing book by Marissa Henley called Loving Your Friend Through Cancer. And she goes over what is a super simplified thing that I had just never thought of. But I think finding your own identity in the relationship of the person that's surviving cancer is the most important thing to do, is to know who you are in the relationship. And she talks about 3 different, like the inner circle, the middle circle, and the outer circle, and finding which one you're in. And then it's way easier after that to determine, now what's my role in supporting this person? Because in all of those aspects, you need to support someone. So if it's a neighbor, that looks different than if it's your best friend or a family member. My inner circle were the people going to doctor's appointments with me and watching my kids and holding back my hair when I puked and giving me my injections and helping me take my medication, and helping with my emotional needs. But then there were inner circle people that were bringing meals to us, and that were giving us, helping meet financial needs that we had as a family. And then there was outer group people, which this is my favorite group of people. I think that you can be in the outer circle and move into an inner circle just by loving and supporting someone. I think one of my favorite things was a neighbor in our community, and we weren't great friends at the time, but our kids were the same age and we've lived in our community. We were here about 5 years before my diagnosis. So my daughter, right in the middle of my journey, was like a year long, and my neighbor called me and said, I'm going to have a birthday party for your daughter. She was my oldest. She was in 2nd grade. She was turning 8. She said, we're going to plan it. I'm going to do the location. I'm going to do the invites. I'm going to tell people what gifts that your daughter might like. I'm going to do the party favors. We're going to have it meet at my house. And she said, you know what? You don't even have to come if you can't, or if you're not feeling good that day, but I'll come get Rose and all of her friends will be there and I will do the whole entire party. And I just was like, wow, you don't think about those things. But she didn't call me and say, if you need anything, let me know. She called and met a great need that as a mom, you want to throw your daughter a birthday party, but when you're in the middle of cancer treatment and you can't get out of bed, you're not going to do that. So she met a need for our family that we had.
Man, yeah, who's cutting onions?
Right?
But yeah, just that's so amazing. The forethought that went into that, and it was just that it was so specific and timely for her to know and just say like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and to just meet that need. Yes,
and it was great. Every Friday we had a team of women that did soup Fridays for a family. So every Friday morning at 9, we had a soup of the week delivered with like a bread and a salad and a soup. And they traded off making different soups for my family for that whole year. And I was not they weren't like my inner circle people. They were people from the community that stepped in and said, this is what we're going to do for you, and this is how we're going to bless your family. I had other people bring snacks for my kids. I had a 18-month-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old at the time of my diagnosis. Yeah. So, yeah, I can't even look back and think, how do we do that? But I had friends bring snacks already prepared and made for the kids so they could just grab them. They were already individually bagged up, little pretzels or little carrots, little things that, as a mom, like, I don't know, that's what I was doing before. And now I'm still not back to doing that kind of stuff, but that was a super huge help.
Who can really?
Right. The super moms of the world stepped in and helped me be the super mom in the midst of when I felt like I wasn't being a mom at all. And they let me spend time with my kids instead of do all the things as a mom that you need to do. Another awesome thing was a local hospital emergency room did our Christmas that year. And I remember when I got the call from one of the nurses, it said, every year our department lists a bunch of families in need, and someone listed your name. And I remember being like, we don't need this. Like, at the time, honestly, with the perspective change that we had in my family, I kind of thought, like, we don't need gifts. Like, life is not about gifts. My kids need nothing. I just want to be with them. I want their presence. I want to spend time. And she said, you've already been chosen. You don't have a choice.
Tough.
Yes. She said, if you think it's okay, I'd like to talk to your husband, work with him about some of the needs you might have and some of the wants your kids might have. And we're going to drop off your Christmas. So a week before Christmas, 2014, we had 3 minivans park outside my house and drop off Christmas for my kids. And it was the most extravagant, ridiculous Christmas my kids ever have had or will have. But they did the whole entire thing. Yes. And I said, you will remember that Christmas for your entire lives as a very special gift that you guys were given in a way that we were supported by complete strangers. So I could go on and on. I think it's just so important to know which role you play and who you are as a friend to the person. And then, things like if you're in that outer circle and you don't know them really well, a note in the mailbox can change someone's life. So nothing's too small of a gesture when someone's going through something like what my family went through.
Well, and I really like how, a lot of the examples that you described, they were really, creative and outside the box kind of thinking. And not to get into it too much, but like we said, I know you, so I imagine that had to have been really hard for you. You're used to doing and being the one helping, and to have to be on the receiving end of that, I imagine that had to have been a pretty big shift for you.
Yeah, that was hard.
And I did want to ask, the one thing you mentioned about was meals, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this or if you guys use this service, but I know a lot of times often people will use Meal Train to set things up. It's a service that you're able to plug in people that are going to bring meals or set up household chores where they're going to cut your grass or things like that. And I know that can often be used for people who are sick or when a baby is born or things like that.
Yep. We did. We had a nanny, a house cleaner. When you have 4 little kids under the age of 8, like I had to have someone full-time taking care of me and someone here full-time taking care of the kids. I had someone cleaning my house, and I wake up some days now and I'm like, where's the cleaning lady?
Yeah.
That's nice. That's really nice. So we had all you got to have all the things. Like we wouldn't have made it without all the things. We wouldn't have. Our life was what went from what was whatever normal is to totally uprooting everything that we had known and changed in the matter of a day. So, yeah.
So are there other supports or other services that you typically try to connect cancer patients and their families with?
Yeah, there's several that are like my favorites. There's a lot of times I tell people the best way to start is I tell everyone you have three parts to your healing journey, and that's physical, emotional, and spiritual. So you need to meet the needs in a lot of different ways. And, physically, I think a great place to start is with your team of doctors that's taking care of you to find out, there's staff. I met with a patient advocate support team at Penn where I went, where they helped me figure out the right medications that, I needed to emotionally help and support myself. And so that's a good place to start too. I tell people to connect with a local church. Like I know sometimes that's hard. And when you're in a hard place, that's the last thing you want to think about for some people. A lot of times it's the best place to go because they have connections to counseling and grief counseling support and connecting with other people who may have gone through what you're going through before, and just a place to get connected in your community with different support groups. I know with our local community, there's a foundation called Vicky's Angels that helps financial support for people in our local community. There's another group called Someone to Tell It To that just thrives. They thrive off of giving listening support to people who need it in different seasons of their lives. And, for me, for my physical healing, I worked with a nonprofit organization in Baltimore called Believe Big, where they help branch the gap between conventional and complementary medicine. So a lot of my healing journey has taken place with the support of their team there. So there's a lot of places. I love to talk to people about that for themselves. I love to help people get connected where they feel like they're falling short in one of those categories and help them find the place that they need the support. So.
Awesome. And yeah, for anybody listening, I'll make sure to include those names, those links in the show notes. So, for anybody who's, driving or working out, not able to write it down, I'll make sure to throw that into the show notes so you can check that out. So, Joanna, what do you want everyone to know about Radiant Hope? Upon coming to you guys or before getting to you guys, what do you want everybody to know?
I want them to know that we see you and we know the pain that you're going through. As a survivor or a caregiver, we want to step in and encourage you. And sometimes it's just by way of our little package, and other times it's more than that. But I think it's, like I said, it's often takes many different avenues to support someone. I found that a lot of times it's one thing every day from one person or one different organization that builds up a support team for a lifetime of what people are going through. So I do want people to, you can look at our website where you can see all the different things you can do and the ways you can get involved. You can request a package on our website. It's the first thing you'll see when you go to our website, hisradianthope.org, is how to request a package for someone that who's surviving cancer or caring for someone who's surviving cancer.
So they can go there to request a package, to find out about donating, or to find out about hosting a pack party.
Yep.
So what are some projects you're going to be working on, for the rest of 2018, 2019? What can we expect to see from you and Radiant Hope?
Yeah, I feel like we're always working on a lot of stuff. At least my brain is always working on a lot of stuff. So right now we are doing some super exciting things with partnering with a marketing class at Messiah who's helping us kind of rebrand all of our techniques and initiatives for the coming year, just to get the rate at which we have grown in the last 3 years is kind of amazing and astronomical, if you ask me, where I'm like, we started doing this one thing and we were all about one thing and now it's a big thing. And so they're going to help us, and that's huge. So that's going to take up a good amount of my time. So I'm going back to college. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
We have our large fundraiser and celebration night in June. So we're going to be working on that. And I think the date is going to be the 13th of June for that. But we're working on that now. We're working on setting up different community projects. So every month we have 2 or 3 different groups that are doing packing days, and we'll hold big packing parties often to meet the needs of the amount of requests of packages that we're getting each month.
Oh, and we completely forgot to mention that, you guys just relaunched your website, a beautiful new website that you guys just redid at hisradianthope.org. Yeah, Joanna, thank you so much for being willing to do this. It's just, I know we talked about this over a year ago and working to put this together, but I'm just so excited to get this out to everybody. I feel like there's such a huge need for it, for people to know about, the different supports that are out there and that they can access.
I think so too. I don't think you need it until you're in it too. It's not like people are sitting around now waiting and setting up this group of support that they might need. So it's hard because it's all happening at the same time and you don't know what you need until you need it.
Well, and I think for so many people, they think that it's not going to happen to them. This type of stuff doesn't happen to me or to us. This, that happens on TV or movies, and it's never going to hit me, and then it does. Right,
and you're like, what? What do we do? So yeah, it's good to have these resources. It's great. You're going to make a difference, and it's like I just prayed somebody's going to listen to this that is going to need a little extra, and from some avenue they're going to get it if they find you or me or whoever. So it's good.
So again, thank you just for being willing to sit down and talk with me about this to let everybody know about Radiant Hope.
Thank you.
I wish you and your team all the best and good luck with everything that you're working on in the next year. So that was Joanna Dennstaedt. So I hope you guys will check out the different links and the resources that she referenced, which I've included in the show notes. And again, just to wrap up, obviously there are 1,000,001 different causes out there. There are so many different diseases and things that need our time and our attention. And obviously cancer is only one in a sea of important issues. And I just really want to stress the importance of reaching out to people that that they're dealing with a cancer diagnosis, either themselves or their family or loved ones. And there are so many different ways to help and support, whether that's just a kind word, a text message, but also just helping out. I mean, things like dog walking, childcare, grocery shopping, just so many different ways to lend your time and your talents and your abilities to somebody that is struggling. And I also want to make sure to put a plug in for getting yourself checked, getting a medical screen, having regular doctor's appointments. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. November is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. So please make sure that you're getting regular screenings to check for all of these different things, because it just really is so important, especially with colorectal cancer awareness in March. One of the taglines is, don't die from embarrassment because of not wanting to get checked and being afraid of the answer you might get, that's not going to change whether you have cancer or not. So please be sure to do that, if I could stress anything. All right, that wraps up OTC Episode 4. Thank you and good night. Next episode, I'm thrilled to be speaking with Lauren Eckert of Lauren Eckert Coaching. She uses life coaching to improve the lives of teens and adults in the D.C., Maryland metro area, so be sure to check that out. If you liked what you've heard on the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and review wherever you're catching this podcast at. You can check out any links and resources on our detailed show notes or other episodes that have been archived at www.parentfamilysolutions.com/podcast. If you want to catch up on what Parenting and Family Solutions is doing, be sure to follow us on any of your favorite social media apps. This is your host, John Dennis, saying good night. The author and host of this podcast is not engaged in a therapeutic relationship with the listener and cannot give counseling advice without a confidential appointment. Listeners should be sure to consult with a licensed therapist in their area or seek emergency medical attention if they are experiencing psychological difficulty. A special thanks to the Topsy Turvies for the show theme song. Their song, Like a Living Dead, can be found at topsyturvies.bandcamp.com. The bump interview track was the song 1973 by Bruno E. The author and host of this podcast is John Dennis. Special thanks to producer and editor Trevor Groff.